nonverbal or
Yeah.
being more. Well, I know when I was growing up, my father and his brothers also were a men of very few words. They didn't talk a lot, uh, so they communicated what they needed with as few words as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I think, especially if you live in the inner city, and you I think you learn to be more verbal because of the needs of whatever you like. If you're working, jobs, I think change what your needs are as far as verbal communication, and so I'm sure that a lot of Native peoples, uh, are more verbal than they used to be
Yeah.
outside of their own community.
Um,
Um,
it's what about like a story that maybe like would be like a misunderstanding between like someone in the native then like in Portland like that they wouldn't understand like culture wise.
hmm. Trying to, hmm. I can't really offhand think of anything that comes to mind. Or where you mean where a non-native person would understand?
Like maybe someone in the city wouldn't understand like where they're coming from, like maybe with the land or respecting it maybe.
Of course, in this day and age, I think most people are a lot more aware of the need to
Yeah.
protect our resources and everything. But well, a good example might be of the need to when they decided they needed another dam on the Columbia River. There was no thought given to the fact that there was a fishing grounds there that had been there for thousands of years. That it was a community meeting place for all these tribes to fish, and the needs of the government and people became the priority. More electrical power over what had been there for, like I said, thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there had to have been some very hard, harsh feelings, on the point of on the from the native peoples that had fished there for all those years, including my father and his brother, and all of the people that we knew up there. So that's the high point, or the low point, I should say, of
Yeah.
of my feelings on that.
um and then is is the culture like are they more like in the Native American culture are they more individual or are they more like in a group like as a group community?
I think the way I remember it, like you know, it was more of a group thing. We enjoyed being together and uh, you know, getting together for powwows and things, uh, meeting for food, and I think uh, you know they enjoy being together as a group. Uh, is the way I always have felt about it.
There. Okay. What are if what if any differences in friendship do you see in the city versus um, relationships and romantic relationships in Native American community?
Well, I think when you are in a community where there is a close knit group, of like in a smaller town where there are more native peoples living, uh, or closer to the reservation, you're not apt to to marry or you know you get into an involvement with someone out of your own culture. Here, like in a city where you're meeting all these different people. Um, uh, I mean, you're exposed to so many other aspects of your work, etc. I think that it's very likely that you are going to have and like as myself, my husband was a non-Indian, and met him through friends here, and married, because when I was a young person, except for when we were up, fishing. Uh, I really at the time there wasn't here in Portland a really uh, community
Mhm.
of native peoples who saw each other regularly. That happened kind of later on, like when my after my father died. I was sorry he missed this. There
Mhm.
became some very active in native community groups in Portland who got together for powwows and things frequently, and uh, so I think now you would have more opportunity to meet a young, another fellow, native. But at the time, it wasn't so. Yeah. So my husband was a non-Indian. So
So how what was it like to go fishing with your dad? And
well,
what
oh
was the
my gosh.
atmosphere
Well,
like?
oh, the atmosphere. It was. Well, it was just really carefree. It was just wonderful being up there. Uh, the spray coming from the falls, even those hot days, because it gets very hot up there, just felt so good. And my dad fished on a wooden scaffold with a rope around his waist, so if he fell in, he wouldn't go on down the river. They all wore that. All the fishermen did. Used a net, depending on what time of the year it was. It was a dipping net for smaller fish, or when they had the big Chinooks come in, they were huge nets. And but my job was to, after he pulled the fish out of the water, I hit it in the head with a stick to put it out of its misery.
Oh,
So,
fish.
and so yeah, so I helped him that way. Lots of tourists came to those falls to buy fish right from the fishermen, right if they were caught right out of the river. And so I used to help my dad hold them up and weigh them, because we had little scales where you could
Mhm.
weigh, so they know how much the fish weighed and how much it would cost. So yeah, that was my job.
Sounds fun. Is there anything else you'd like to share about being a part of that culture?
Well, I don't get around to things as much as I used to. We always went up to the Pendleton Roundup because it's there on our reservation,
Mhm.
and it was wonderful. And one of my daughters used to go up and it was involved in the dancing, And my oldest sister had all of the native clothing, buckskin dresses and a blanket dress and things.
Mhm.
And my daughter Susan, she wore the blanket dress and danced there at the, and she won this beautiful Pendleton blanket one year
Oh.
for dancing. Yes, but after my oldest sister died and one became ill, we didn't get to go up to Pendleton as often. But we still had the Powells here in Portland that very active. My dad's, she was really my dad's cousin. We called her Aunt Gertie, and this other friend. They made the best fry bread. Nobody could make fry bread like they did, and so we would always have that out at the powwow and sell it. So, yeah, and we had a big tradition.